On March the 25th of 2024, 81-year-old William Brock, mistaking an innocent Uber driver for a robber, shot 61-year-old Lalitha Hall dead in front of his home in Clark County, Ohio. He had been the victim of a phone call scam, wherein a relative of his called him from jail, demanding money. Not long after, Hall showed up claiming she had been sent to pick up a package. Brock menaced her with a revolver, then shot her 3 times and called 911. Authorities received a call from Brock saying that he had shot somebody who was attempting to rob him. What they found when they arrived at the scene was a 61-year-old woman lying on the ground, bleeding out from multiple gunshot wounds. They were ultimately unable to save her. Thanks to video footage from her dashcam, they determined that she presented no threat to Brock. Because of that, and since he did not contact authorities until after firing at her, they arrested him and charged him with murder. As of the latest updates, legal proceedings in the case are ongoing. Number 7. It's about respect. On October the 11th of 2019, 24-year-old Mel Vonta Jones fatally shot his own stepfather inside his Milwaukee, Wisconsin home. The murder was witnessed firsthand by the victim's wife, along with Jones's 7-year-old half-sister. Jones confronted Benjamin Sims Sr. and at gunpoint told him not to disrespect him, his mother, or his family, then pulled the trigger. Sharita Sims, the wife of the victim, and also Jones's mother, stated that the entire incident stemmed from a misunderstanding. She did not elaborate much further on the matter, but Jones himself later told investigators that he felt disrespected and distanced from his mother and family by the victim. He also stated that he did not originally intend to shoot the victim but to scare him. He had intended to fire a warning shot that missed the victim but ended up hitting him twice in the head and abdomen. In the aftermath, Jones was charged with reckless homicide, among other crimes. On July the 20th of 2020, he was sentenced to 22 years in prison along with 8 years of extended supervision. He also had to pay $5,000 in restitution to his own mother and half-sister. Sharita Sims reported after the fact that she was traumatized by the event, claiming to be scared not only of her own son but of everyone around her, leaving her a nervous wreck and unable to leave the house or even eat. Number 6. That's not my face. In September of 2023, an innocent man was arrested in Houston, Texas because of a case of mistaken identity that stemmed from a picture posted on Facebook. 19-year-old Austin Colson was driving home from a shift delivering pizzas when he was pulled over for failure to make a complete stop at a signal light. He was already more than a little scared, this being his first traffic stop, but when a second deputy showed up, he went from terrified to terribly confused. The deputy informed him that he had a warrant out for assault in San Marcos, over 200 miles away, and took him into custody. After roughly 16 hours in jail, Colson was set free with officers unwilling to answer his questions. He and his father teamed up to reach out to Hays County officials and figure out what had happened. An assault had taken place in San Marcos back in 2021 when multiple assailants attacked a man outside a bar. One of the attackers was from Colson's hometown, and when the victim was shown photos from that man's Facebook, he fingered Colson as another attacker. Officers found that Colson attended Texas State University, which would place him in the vicinity of the crime. This information turned out to be incorrect. Colson was enrolled at Sam Houston State University. The oversight was underscored by San Marcos police officer Kyle Lobo, who claimed to have collaborated with Texas State University to identify Colson. Since Colson was not a student there, this claim ultimately rang hollow. Because of this incident, Colson is bringing a formal lawsuit against the city of San Marcos, the police department, and several individuals that were directly involved in the botched investigation and subsequent arrest. U.S. law states that all defendants are innocent until proven guilty, but Colson, forced to prove his innocence, seeks to hold officials accountable. As of the latest updates, legal proceedings in the suit are ongoing. Number 5. 3 days too long. On May the 20th of 2015, then 32-year-old Maria Rodello of Lindsay, California, was pulled over for using her cell phone while driving, then subsequently arrested on 2 outstanding warrants for crimes that she did not commit. She was forced to spend 3 days in jail before officials realized their error, and according to Rodello, that time was full of traumatizing incidents, such as being ridiculed by jail staff. I was treated like a criminal before I even went to jail. I felt violated, Rodello added. The charges, she says, were not clear. The warrants were not hers, and she was behind bars for 2 nights and 3 days. Rodello said it was horrible, humiliating. Her ordeal ended on May 22nd in front of a judge who let her go. They kept apologizing to me, Rodello said. The public defender who'd seen me, he was in shock and said Tulare police had no right to arrest me. Rodello decided to hold the county and the cops accountable. She reached out to a local law firm and filed a claim against both the city and county of Tulare, 2 separate entities that both had a hand in the arrest. The ultimate outcome of that claim and whether it was escalated to a full lawsuit remains unclear. Number 4. Never get between a man and his smokes. In January of 2024, 34-year-old Desmond Francis was gunned down outside a smoke shop in Brooklyn, New York, by a friend who failed to identify him at the time. Francis was seen on video strolling into the shop, then playfully snatching 2 bags from a customer. He stood outside the store laughing, waiting for his friend to come out and reclaim his baggage when he was shot in the chest. His friend didn't realize who had taken his items and thought he was actually being robbed. When the shooter realized what had happened, he frantically dialed 911. He could be heard on the line apologizing to his friend, explaining that he didn't realize it was him. Sadly, his apologies and the best efforts of medics were no help. Francis was taken to a local hospital for treatment, but succumbed to his wounds. The shooter reportedly remained by the victim's side until he heard sirens, then fled. As of the latest updates, he remains at large. Francis's mother, whom he lived with at the time, expressed her devastation to local news crews covering the incident. She explained that her son was working on fixing up 2 freight trucks that he had recently bought in an attempt to start his own trucking company. Sadly, that dream, along with his life, was cut short by a case of mistaken identity. Number 3. Ground control loses control. In May of 2010, a plane crashed near Kabul, Afghanistan, as the result of botched communications between the pilots and air traffic control. 44 people aboard met an abrupt end, with 3 British men among them: 51-year-old Christopher Carter, 28-year-old David Taylor, and 40-year-old Daniel Saville. Being on board prompted British authorities to get involved in the investigation into the deadly crash. Everybody aboard was killed, but thanks to recordings and instrument readings, investigators were able to piece together what happened. Not long before the crash, the crew had requested permission to descend, likely due to bad weather in the area. Despite being denied permission due to dangerous conditions below, the plane began to make its way down. Once the plane started heading down, traffic control tried to warn the pilots of the danger below and warned them that they were descending too quickly. Somehow, the pilots did not heed that grim herald and ultimately crashed the plane into the side of a mountain. The families of the 3 British men aboard expressed that they could not accept the conclusion of the saga in its current state. The reason for the breakdown in communication is still not clear. Over a decade later, it's suspected that a lack of strict regulation in Afghan airspace, a language barrier, and previous false proximity alerts leading up to the crash are to blame. A verdict of accidental death was passed down, and nobody in traffic control was pinpointed, nor were presiding authorities held accountable. Today's topic was requested by Jim Krause 1975 and Sean Dillap 8587. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Felon goes free. On September the 13th of 2023, 28-year-old Kevin Mason was mistakenly released from a jail in Indianapolis, Indiana, due to a clerical error. Mason was in prison awaiting trial in connection to the fatal shooting of 29-year-old Dontivius Catchins, who was killed in a parking lot outside of a Minneapolis church in June of 2021. As soon as authorities figured out the error later that same day, the manhunt was on. More than 100 officers from various agencies in the area began searching and pieced together that he had already left the immediate area. The search was expanded and more officers and agencies got involved. Over the course of 2 weeks, local police, sheriffs, deputies, and even the Federal Bureau of Investigation joined in the search. They learned that Mason had ties to various people in the Minnesota area. After involving the U.S. Marshals, among other agencies, and offering a $10,000 reward, investigators finally caught a break and zeroed in on a home in South St. Paul, Minnesota. They obtained a warrant to enter the home and see who was inside, and it was there that they finally found the suspect and hauled him back in. As of the latest updates, the case is still ongoing. If you think these misunderstandings couldn't get any worse, wait till you see what happens when they hit the bedroom. Stay tuned till after number 1, because we've got When Bedroom Brawls Go Wrong coming right up for you next. Number 1. New York Beatdown leads to payout. In August of 2022, 3 police officers from New York were ordered to pay out a grand total of $191,000 to 31-year-old William Kleinfeld in connection with a wrongful arrest that happened in 2015. Of the 3 cops, 1 is no longer on the force and 1 was undercover, and thus has not had their identity publicized. The faulty arrest went down as part of an undercover drug sting. An unidentified officer allegedly approached a woman and handed her some money, which the woman then gave to Kleinfeld. From there, Kleinfeld and several unidentified parties found the undercover officer, surrounded them, and used force in an attempted robbery. Kleinfeld was then taken down by the undercover officer, along with 52-year-old officer Yanara Morales and 46-year-old Hugo Ortega. This is all according to the officers, at least. That version of events that the officers told their high-ranking officials quickly fell apart in court. Video of the incident showed that there was no handoff and there was no robbery. Instead, Kleinfeld was surrounded and brutalized, with some highlights including Morales kicking him in the face while he was down and Ortega punching him in the gut. Officers maintained that he got those injuries from resisting arrest, a charge which did not make it onto Kleinfeld's rap sheet in court. To make matters worse, Morales later failed a drug test, was kicked off the force, then blamed it all on another officer using Santeria magic to strengthen herself and curse others. Those wild claims that could have been used in court to tear down Morales' credibility did not impress the judge, but the video did. Presented with all the evidence necessary to conclude that all 3 officers had lied and beaten an innocent man, the undercover officer was ordered to pay out just over $134,000, with the other 2 receiving lesser orders but still sizable orders. Las Vegas woman Devin Michaels was arrested on August the 15th of 2023 as the primary suspect in the grisly murder of her on-again, off-again boyfriend, 46-year-old Jonathan Willett. On the morning of August the 7th, the latter's mother had called the police to the home in the 2000 block of Paladura Drive after she'd found Willett's headless body on his bed. Willett's mother told the police that the last time she'd seen her son was at around 10 p.m. the night before, when he was in 45-year-old Michaels' company. At around 1 a.m., the mother saw Michaels washing dishes in the kitchen downstairs. A brief conversation ensued, during which Michaels reportedly claimed that Willett was drunk and had gone to bed. A few hours later, Willett's mother made the harrowing discovery. The police detected a chemical smell similar to that of bleach and ammonia around the body, and the presence of smoke-like vapors emanating from the remains, indicating that the substance had been used on them. Willett's head wasn't immediately located. On August the 8th, his mother called the police again to tell them that a meat cleaver was missing from the kitchen. Michaels, who was determined to have left the home at around 2 a.m., was brought in for questioning by Las Vegas police. It would emerge that she was married to Willett's son, while she and Willett had 2 daughters. The marriage, officiated a few years prior, was atypical in the sense that it was only meant to aid Michaels with some medical issues. She and Willett's son were reportedly only trying to help each other out. Michaels and Willette were said to have been trying to mend their relationship, but the woman told the police that the latter was abusive towards her and her children. Upon taking a polygraph on August the 15th, Michaels had a significant reaction when asked if she participated in any way in the death of Willette. She eventually admitted that they were both in bed on the night of the incident and that she was massaging his back. Willette then allegedly asked Michaels to perform an intimate act on him, and she struck him in the head with a wooden stick. His body went limp, but Michaels claimed she'd never meant to kill him but only hit him hard enough to hospitalize him until she could figure out what to do with her children. The case was ongoing as of the latest updates. Michaels was charged with murder but hadn't admitted to decapitating Willette, with the police providing no further insight into the whereabouts of the man's head. Number 6. Incident in Florida. 25-year-old Florida woman Hallie Conley lured an unnamed man to a home in Homestead with the intention of robbing him along with 2 accomplices in May of 2023. When the victim arrived at the agreed-upon address, Conley led him to the bedroom where he encountered 36-year-old Isaiah Perez sitting in a chair. Conley then left the room and returned with 35-year-old Rafael Cyprian, who brandished a pistol. He held the man at gunpoint and threatened to kill him lest he handed over his valuables. The victim complied, giving the robbers his cell phone and $400 in cash. Cyprian then tried to shoot the man, but his gun jammed. It gave the victim enough time to pull out his own pistol and let off a shot, hitting Perez in the arm. A brawl ensued, during the course of which Cyprian began striking the victim with his gun while Conley and Perez were punching him. As the melee unfolded, the battered man was able to shoot his gun once more, hitting Cyprian in the foot. He then pleaded with the robbers to let him go, but Cyprian reportedly replied, "You're going to die." Conley then stabbed the victim, but he was ultimately able to flee the home with his life. The police were alerted and the thieving trio was arrested on charges of armed robbery, attempted murder, and false imprisonment. Number 5. Stanley Gordon. In June of 2014, South Carolina man Stanley Gordon unleashed a savage attack on his wife, whom he suspected of being unfaithful, at their home in Rock Hill. Gordon went into their bedroom while the woman was sleeping and started repeatedly hitting her in the head with a hammer. When the woman awoke in excruciating pain and bleeding profusely from her head wounds, Gordon kept her trapped in the bedroom. The unnamed 40-year-old victim begged him to call the emergency services, but he stood between her and the bedroom door, armed with a hammer and a pistol. The police were eventually called to the residence in the 800 block of Heckle Boulevard and found the victim in serious condition, as well as an empty gun case on the bed. The woman's left arm was broken in 2 places, her right arm was sprained, and her head wounds would require 58 staples to mend. A canine unit tracked 43-year-old Gordon down near the couple's home, and he was taken into custody. He was held without bail on charges of attempted murder, kidnapping, and possession of a firearm during a crime of violence. He was consequently barred from seeing his wife. Number 4. Incident in Brazil. A video was widely shared on social media platforms in Brazil in the spring of 2019. In the aftermath of an unnamed woman catching her husband in bed with their babysitter, the woman started recording on her cell phone and placed the device on a counter overlooking the bedroom door. Her baby was captured in the frame sitting in a stroller. The woman then briefly cracked the bedroom door open before she went to retrieve a pistol. She fired 1 shot prior to entering the room and then 3 others as she began screaming at the cheating couple to get out. The baby started crying upon hearing the shots ring out. The pair, both of whom were in the nude, was shown in the footage as they emerged from the room before the video cut off. It wasn't made immediately clear if the woman was charged in connection to the shooting, and her identity remained unknown as of subsequent information available to the media. Number 3. John Dimmick. Florida man John Dimmick from Lake Worth was arrested and faced charges of attempted murder, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, and burglary in the summer of 2023. Dimmick's wife, Christy Barbato, had gone out for drinks with a co-worker who was only identified as an Arizona CT technician who'd traveled to Florida for work. The duo then returned to the unnamed man's Airbnb in Lake Worth and had intercourse. At some point during their rendezvous on June the 17th, Barbato's husband, 33-year-old John Dimmick, stormed into the Airbnb wielding a black Rawlins aluminium bat. He charged his wife's lover and knocked him down with a bat strike. He then pinned him to the floor and hit him at least 3 more times. In a surveillance clip of the incident, Barbato was heard screaming, "John, stop, he's bleeding." The woman was ultimately successful in pulling her husband off the victim. As he left, Dimmick reportedly told the other man, "Don't come near my wife again." When the police arrived at the scene, they found the victim lying on his back and bleeding profusely from a head wound. Before he was taken to a local hospital, he told the police that Dimmick would have likely killed him if not for Barbato's intervention. The woman, who was also a CT technician, admitted to the tryst with the co-worker and identified her husband as the man who'd attacked him. The police went to interview Dimmick at his home and found him loading up his Hyundai sedan with 2 bags of clothes. The man denied having left his residence on the day, with the exception of briefly doing some grocery shopping. He admitted to having a baseball bat but claimed he hadn't hit anyone with it. He was nevertheless arrested after the police found several key pieces of evidence. Near the couple's laundry room, officers discovered a ripped black t-shirt and white undershirt that appeared to have blood on it. An officer observed small hairs on the thicker part of Dimmick's bat, on the portion that would normally be used to hit someone. Additionally, a car matching the description of Dimmick's Hyundai was caught on a traffic camera a block from the Airbnb about a minute after the attack. Number 2. Incident in New Hampshire. Shortly before midnight on February the 22nd of 2022, Ian Morris broke into a house in Litchfield, New Hampshire. Armed with a knife and a hatchet, he entered the bedroom, woke up a couple and asked them, "How do you want to die?" The victims didn't know 24-year-old Morris and initially thought he was pulling a prank on them. They started getting dressed and realized the seriousness of the threat when Morris asked the unnamed man to follow him outside. The latter refused, at which point Morris struck him with the blunt part of the hatchet, leading to a physical altercation. During the brawl, the male homeowner was able to disarm Morris, and his wife subsequently picked up the weapons. 2 other people living in the house called the police, and officers arrived at the scene within minutes. They found the homeowner bleeding from his head and face while Morris had his arms around him and was gripping his shirt. The intruder was arrested. He was determined to have selected the victims at random, and they were expected to fully recover from the attack. Morris was taken to jail and held without bail on charges of attempted murder and kidnapping. Number 1. Lawrence Westgaff. 34-year-old British historian Lawrence Westgaff was taken to Liverpool Crown Court in the summer of 2009, following a brawl that stemmed from a love triangle involving his girlfriend, Natalie Inge. On February the 20th of 2009, Westgaff visited the woman's home in Toxteth, Liverpool. He found her in bed with Bed Blantz, a man described as Westgaff's closest confidant, and whom the historian had reportedly treated as a member of his family. It was reportedly evident that the pair had had relations while Westgaff and Inge's child was in an adjacent room. Westgaff lunged at Blantz and punched him several times in the face, fracturing his eye socket. 28-year-old Blantz suffered bites to his fingers after sticking them in the historian's mouth during the confrontation. A piece of the man's ear was also torn off, and while initially reported to have been bitten off by Westgaff, the injury was later described as an accident likely caused by Blantz falling on a sharp edge during the brawl. In September of 2009, the historian, an expert on Black British history and slavery, who'd made appearances on multiple radio and TV shows, was convicted of grievous bodily harm. He was given a 9-month jail sentence, suspended for 2 years. Thanks for watching. Would you rather never be allowed to use a calculator again, or never be allowed to use navigation again? Let us know in the comments section below.